for Schwartz, my program research was evaluating the parent-coach experience in part of the Family Navigator program that happens here at the Mind Institute. Okay, so what is the Family Navigator program? The Family Navigator program is designed to help families navigate the early stages during a diagnosis, well, whether it's autism or another neurodevelopmental disability. And through a parent coaching model, the families and the parent coaches are using the Mind the Gap curriculum that basically establishes the connection between the families and a parent coach, and ideally to build advocacy and resources within the community. So why is this program important? And really, why did I choose this project? So families are often quite overwhelmed during the early stages of diagnosis. After a diagnosis, families often have to figure out those next steps alone. Parents often experience isolation during this time. Parent coaches can relate. They've been in the other parent's shoes. So my main motive for this research was to really say, how do we support the families during this early process? A lot of us now know that there's much more funding and increase in supports for early intervention services, but do we really know what that process looks like for the families during that time, and what their support looks like, and how they are navigating that process? So with the significance of the study, the goal is to basically assess the program impact, to define the needed supports for both coaches and families, to improve program development, to essentially support families, support coaches, and then determine if the Family Navigator program has met their intended goals. The objective of this study is to show understanding and efficacy of the Family Navigator program with the impact that it has on the coaches and families, hopefully a positive impact, in hoping that we do gather more support to eventually create more funding. So here are some limitations with the study. The study is only in its second year. They had their pilot last year, so we have a small sample. You'll see in a minute. It is a grassroots program, so this program was really designed by parents and parent coaches that volunteered and said, we need to do this. There is an extreme need. Let's get together and create this as best we can. The biggest limitation is that we do see that families are so overwhelmed, and at this time it didn't feel appropriate to add another thing to the family's plates by even taking something as simple as a survey. So I really wanted to focus on working with the parent coaches and to gather their opinion of the program and focus on their experience, and then we'll move forward with the caregiver response. Also some limited demographics with the families and coaches. So the method. We have 7 parent coach participants. I did a quantitative and qualitative survey. So there was open-ended questions, there was an online survey. We also had a focus group with Spanish translation if needed. Okay, who are our parent coaches? We do have some parent coaches in this room. They are mothers. They are women ages 40 to 70 plus. We have a wide variety and a diversity of African American, South Korean, Caucasian, Latino. They are all living in the Sacramento area, and their children range from ages 5 to 35. Their children also have varying disabilities, from autism spectrum disorder to CP to ADHD and other learning disorders. So some of the categories I wanted to measure are primarily training, involvement in the program, the levels of support that the coaches are receiving, the measurement of how coaches track contact with the families, tracking the specific contacts, caregiver response to the program through the eyes of the parent coach, measuring caregiver progress, and future supports. So some of the questions that I looked at when talking with the coaches were the program goals explained to you? What are the expectations of your role? Are you familiar with the various services that are provided to families? How do you support a family emotionally? What resources do you use to gather that information to support the families? Also, is the program culturally sensitive? Is it a good cultural competent training program? When looking at the level of support for coaches, I really wanted to see, are they being supported? Are they feeling appreciated? How much time are they meeting with families? Are they receiving enough time in their trainings? Are they receiving feedback? And what does it look like in terms of parent coaches working with other parents and teaching each other? So involvement in the program, I wanted to look at what did it feel like to be a coach and what is the manageability of their caseload? What did it look like between either a volunteered position or a paid position? And would that difference include or lead to greater participation and more cases? Also, what would it look like if the parent coaches met with the families in person? Could that possibly increase participation versus a typical phone call or email response? I also wanted to look at how much time each parent coach spend with the families. So on average, you can see there is actually quite a range between our coaches. It averages between 3 to 4 hours a month. Some coaches reported that their time spent with families just varied. So a lot of the response that I heard back from coaches were, I'm going with what the needs of the family is. So depending on whatever the family needs is what the coach offered. Some families showed that they were more responsive to supports, and some did not take as much support. So in terms of tracking content with families, I really wanted to know, what did it look like? Are coaches reaching out to the families? Are families reaching out to the coaches? And we found that 80% of the coaches felt that it was best that they contacted the families. And most of the coaches were creating their data through digital versus handwritten. And interesting for me was the method of contact with the families. A majority contacted the families through email. And about 20% was a variety between phone and email and text, and another 20% was phone call. So that was really interesting to me to measure, to say, what does it really look like for these families? What does accessing this information look like for them, and what sort of support feels safe and most comfortable? And it looks like email. So this was also a really important question to me. What was the greatest challenge in working and connecting, staying in contact with families? And the overwhelming response across the board, as you can see, time, time, and time. So parents are overwhelmed too. Parent coaches, they have busy lives. Everyone has really full schedules. So the ability to connect with families was really impacted by time. I also looked at the overall coach satisfaction, and I focused on the 3 categories of training, support, and involvement. And as you can see, there is a wide distribution in how the coaches are perceiving and responding to the program. One coach reported that they're strongly satisfied across the board, while another coach was in the middle range and identified that maybe they're not getting as much support, whether it was through training, support, or involvement levels in the program. So some of the great coach takeaways. Overall, coaches really want more tech support. They wanted more training before working with the families. They wanted to know more about the various services available to them so they could support their families. They wanted to get together more as a team. They typically met as a team once a month, so it sounded like they wanted more than that. And as you can see, there was a wide variety of satisfaction across the coach response to the program. However, coaches are really giving back, and they feel like they're giving back. Coaches are teaching each other, and they're learning from each other. They're working with their own families, and they're working with their clients. And the most interesting point from the coaches that I took culturally, when I said, how did you connect to your families? What was the cultural piece that you felt most connected? And they said, because we're parents. So the coach opinion of the caregiver response, I wanted to look at the caregiver's overall response to the program. Is the program culturally sensitive? Were their self-care goals increasing? How is their goal-setting practice looking? And were their advocacy skills building? And you can see there's about a medium average across the board. So another important thing I wanted to assess is, why do families not choose this program, or why do they opt out of the program? A parent says, life is just so stressful right now. Caregivers are incredibly overwhelmed. Oftentimes, it's family stressors that inhibit a family from accessing even such great resources as this program that are free and offered to them. Also, caregivers just may have gotten their needs met elsewhere. They have one thing, and then they get support elsewhere, and they move forward. So what is most rewarding about being a family navigator? And I really love, this is some of the responses from the parent coaches. Giving back. There's a lot of reciprocity. I wanted someone to take my hand and tell me that I could do it and give me options. I've been in their spot. I didn't even know where to start and what questions to ask. So I keep learning. It's ongoing, and it's amazing. So recommendations moving forward. We want to increase training time with the coaches before they start working with the families. Ongoing monthly trainings and explaining more how the services are available to families and what eligibility criteria looks like. Standardizing a protocol for collection data and for contact with the families. Further evaluation to track the correlation between the time spent with families and the involvement and caregiver progress in the program. Evaluate the caregiver satisfaction levels. So the more that we support the parent coaches and the more that the program builds, we're hoping we can really support the caregivers and feeling comfortable in taking time to do a survey like this. Provide more support, tech support for the coaches. Create more culturally appropriate matches between the coaches and the families. Cultural competency training. And neurodiversity training. That was a suggestion from one of the parent coaches. How do we empower the parents to see the positives and the gifts and the strengths of their children? At this time, families are so bogged down with the clinical and the medical diagnoses that it's really equally as important to celebrate and help the parents see the great. Host monthly parent meetup groups. Expand the outreach for more parent coaches. Transition support, possibly follow-up phone calls 1 to 2 months after a family transitions out of the program. And then connect the families to their districts in the area and then set them up with more supports outside of the mind and with the mind equally. And this is my favorite, the word cloud. Just really shows you that what stands out really with this study and what families are going through and what the community looks like. Families, family time. Families know. Families need resources. Families need materials and resources and more programming. Okay, well, thank you, everyone. Just want to thank the MIND and the LEN program. This has been a wonderful experience.
The UC Davis Mind Institute was created in 1998 with a promise to find cures for neurodevelopmental disorders. Every day, our physicians and researchers come closer to fulfilling that promise. Their groundbreaking research on autism, Fragile X syndrome, chromosome 22q11.2 deletion syndrome, ADHD, and other brain disorders are helping children achieve their fullest potential. Please visit our website to find out more about current studies, upcoming events, and how you can help make a difference.